And we are live.
What's up? What's up, everybody? This is Take 6 and a whole bunch of friends with us today, who we will introduce a little later. But today, the topic on the Spread Love podcast is arts and music, a solution to a problem.
A problem.
A problem. What's that mean, Vin? What's a problem?
Problem is a situation, a situation.
It's going to be a problem.
It's something going on.
You have a solution to that? To whatever's going on?
We'll find out. Yeah, we'll find out.
So, we're just going to discuss what we're doing now, what we have been doing, what we see in the future as far as keeping young people healthy, keeping ourselves healthy during this pandemic, during it and after it, because we're going to come through this, right?
That's right.
On the other side, right?
No other choice.
No other choice. So I know we've talked about this before on some of our podcasts about how the pandemic has affected each one of us individually and certainly collectively. We did one gig last year after March.
Wow. Yeah, we're literally coming up on the 1-year anniversary in 3 days, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We were in Nina's beautiful North Carolina.
That's right.
Fled for home.
Like, put the brakes
She
on.
She left us.
Well, while we're here, let's introduce. This is Nia Morris, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Nina.
Hey.
Nina Freeline.
It's good to be virtual.
Yes. Yes. Much safer this way.
It's better than invisible.
Right.
Well, I have a question. Can anybody remember when they first started phasing out arts in the public schools?
Ooh.
It was after my generation, certainly.
Because they had started Grammys in the schools around that same time period because of that fact, correct? Am I wrong about that?
Well, think about our kids. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
When your kids were in school, because I remember when Jessica was in school, they didn't have band programs like they had when I was in school. So she's 32 now.
Right.
So if she wanted to do music, she had to rent an instrument from somewhere and find a private teacher. They taught music at the school, but they had to get a private teacher and stuff. Whereas in my generation, we had everything at our disposal right there at the school.
Yeah, I grew up with lessons were optional. That was something that you could do if you wanted to. The biggest challenge was if you wanted to do sports and band, then there was usually a conflict with that. It was hard to do both, but instruments were very low cost, and it was taken for granted that you had an extracurricular of some kind that you could do. But I don't know when it went away. My kids, it was just like you said, you had to do private instruction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, matter of fact, my first grade teacher was also my first piano teacher, Mrs. Galley. Yeah, I don't know. Did anybody else? Mark, you weren't at Oakwood for first grade, were you?
Oh, no, I didn't get there until my sophomore year in high school. So all those days, I only visited Huntsville and saw you, as a very young toddler even.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. I'd always kind of looked at, all of our basic, I think we pretty much have the same background, and our schools were always the smaller schools. We never had the big athletic program. We never had the big this or that. But music was always very important and very integral. And, I remember in 5th grade, it was like, what instrument are you going to play in 5th grade band or 6th grade band? There was no choice.
Yeah.
The most non-musical guy was going to be on sticks or timpani or something, and we had classroom music and all of that stuff. But it's really interesting. You see that gap in the public side, but they still offered scholarships at the university level, So if you could figure it out some kind of way and prove that you were, worthy, you could still get the help up at the next level, but you had to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. When we were at Oakwood Academy, the band program there was a little sketchy. Then I went up to Andrews and I went to 4th and 5th grade, and their band program was insane. Pretty much like you said, then everybody was pretty much in the band.
Right, no choice.
And I didn't realize that because I was coming from Oakwood Academy. So by the time I realized that you had pretty much had to be in the band if you're going to be one of the end kids anyway. The only thing left for me to play was the trombone.
There you go, trombone. Me, you, and Claude.
Right.
And that thing was a bear to carry back and
It sure
forth.
was. It sure was.
One of my friends was playing the flute. I was like, oh.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So for those who may not know, what event, political or otherwise, began the phase out of music from the schools? Does anybody remember that? I think it was,
right?
Yeah. Do you remember? Can you talk about what happened that began that process of?
That might be a Dr. Dent question.
At least from the public schools, they were looking for ways to cut back, and it wasn't really. It was frowned upon to cut back on teachers' salaries. So it was the non-essential school activities that had to be cut back. And arts was one of those non-essential things that was cut back.
And that was across the board, not just music. And the thing is, I've watched certain school districts in an effort to compromise, they'll take out elementary school education, arts education, which cuts the legs out of any kind of program. Because
right.
if you haven't had early instruction, by the time you get to middle school, there's just, it just cuts the legs out of any kind of program. You can't matriculate into that next level.
Mm-hmm.
So
a lot of people are saying, especially in the chat on YouTube, they're saying basically it depends on your zip code. That's where it really. And we're saying the same thing. We just haven't said that, depending on where you went to school. Because as I think about it, when I said I had everything, when we lived in Buffalo, we went to one of the best schools in North Tonawanda. We had every kind of program you could think of. Then when I moved to Orlando, Florida, we had none of those things. And it was just this weird dichotomy of, it's kind of like, wait a minute. I don't think anything political happened. It was just, there was a difference in the finances.
Well, I was going to say, I wonder if you did the history or the ethnomusicology behind where the great players came from, like all these guys that came out of New Orleans or Philly for that sound, if their music programs and their politicians stood up for them, and that's why that highway, was so strong, and then these wastelands where nothing really comes out of, what was going on there. It'd be interesting.
You know what? I'm going to have to stop right here because I know he's probably chomping at the bit. We're going to have to introduce Mr. Dr. Cedric. He needs to be part of this discussion. Come on
Get in here, Cedric. Get in here, Cedric. Educate us.
Come on now.
Teach, Doc.
There he is. There he is. Ladies and gentlemen.
He gets a hand clap. He gets a hand clap.
Wise.
Talk to us, Doctor.
You guys are handling it, man. Most programs or most school programs, their worth is really based on their tax base. If you come from an area where you've got a lot of low income people, then a lot of programs that are considered extracurricular are just not going to happen in your school. Right. Let me give you an example. I visit schools, middle schools and high schools a lot as part of the recruiting program here at MTSU. A lot of these schools, man, they offer a lot of the music programs after school. That's part of their after school program. And it's kind of like soccer clubs and things like that. And these parents, man, they support that left and right. But now if you're from a low income community, they're not going to have all those extra programs for you. You know, they complain in the schools that have all these things about, why can't we get the arts programs moved up into the regular part of the day? You know, those are the kinds of arguments they're having.
Wow.
But in the neighborhoods where I grew up, we were talking about, how come there's no instruments in the schools? How come we can't get any music in the schools, period? And
the thing about that, Doc, is that it seems like those are the areas that you would want to have the kids' time occupied versus just being out in the street. And it seems the opposite, exact opposite of what is needed in those areas.
I totally agree. I totally agree. But I don't know if want to move into this or not. But when I first started college, guys, the idea that there were 4-year programs in music industry was not completely non-existent.
Wow.
You know.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when I go to speak at middle schools and high schools, I'm trying to just educate them on choices that they now have if they go to college. And a couple of my colleagues that used to join me, we would perform for the kids, but then we talk about all of the various income streams that we all had outside of our teaching. One of my colleagues, Jim Ferguson, was a bass player, jazz bass player, and a session singer. Some of you guys probably remember him. This guy, he also has a bass building and repair shop in his basement. And he actually, you know, I went to his house and he showed me a room where he had like 20 different basses around the walls. He's like, oh yeah, I build these, man, and sell these. This is part of my income. You know, and that's one of the kinds of things that we would share with the kids. But we're telling them, listen, not everybody's going to be a performer, but you can still have a career in the music industry.
Exactly.
There's so many things that you can do that you probably aren't even aware of. So that's another whole piece to it. I mean, getting kids excited about the industry and not just being a performer. And that sort of, you know, if you can get their parents excited about that, then you start to build support for bringing these programs into these schools.
Absolutely.
Seems like the perfect time for you, Doc, to introduce the young lady we have waiting in the wings.
One of my former students, one of my star singers in the MTSU Singers. Why don't you join us, Nia?
Yeah.
Nia Morris.
Nia Morris.
Hey, Nia, welcome.
Nia Morris.
Nia is a perfect example of what you can do and the opportunities that students now have in preparation to work in the music industry. Awesome. Nia she's graduated now, but Nia was a music industry major. Something like I said that wasn't even available when I first started college. But she's also, her primary instrument is voice. And she's one of my singers in the MTSU Singers, has an incredible ear and is a wonderful performer. So she's graduated. Maybe I'll let her tell you about her what she did her internship in, because all music industry majors have to do an internship with some entity in the music industry. Perhaps Nia, and I should say, one of the reasons why I had her as opposed to any of my other students is she is, by the way, the first recipient of the Take 6 Vocal Jazz Scholarship.
Ooh, yeah.
Making us proud.
All right.
And to get that, I'm coming back to you, Nia, so you can talk about your program, but let me just brag on her a bit. To receive that scholarship, You have to be a vocal jazz. Vocal jazz has to be your primary instrument, and you have to be in the MTSU Singers for every semester that you hold that scholarship. And she did it with aplomb. Yeah, they also have to have a pretty good GPA too. They can't be flunking out and just coming and singing really well.
Where's my money?
They have to be good students as well. And so Nia was the first that we found that was the complete package, and she represented you guys well as the first recipient.
Love that.
Take 6.
Awesome.
But Nia, tell us. Why don't you talk a little bit about the benefit of the music industry program and the internship that you did at the end of your program?
Yeah, absolutely. So just along with a lot of the things that Dr. Dutton was saying, a lot of people don't really know a lot about the industry that there is within the music industry. They mostly want to focus on the performance side. And honestly, with my major, that was something that I was sort of struggling with, was that I didn't know all the ins and outs that went with it, the business side, the marketing, just the people behind the curtains. And that was something that I really wanted to dive into, especially because that's what I wanted to do as my career. So I decided to, after a lot of researching and trying to find an internship last minute, I stumbled across a Facebook post for a little lady she has her own company, a consultant agency called Music Industry Mastery, and she provides opportunities for upcoming artists that want to start marketing themselves as the artist that they want to be. And so what the things that I was doing for her were, I was doing a lot of social media management. So I would provide her with the, Instagram posts, the Facebook posts. I would create these images for her social medias, and she would post them on there, and then she would get responses back from other artists and everything like that. And it was a really big learning opportunity for me, just for someone who really wanted to know the ins and outs about that. So I was really lucky to be able to have that experience just for that short period of time that I had at the end of my college career.
Was there a turning point for you? It seems like you came to an intersection where you were wondering if this is viable. Should I keep going? And when you saw that, did it say, okay, there are other options? Was that your experience, or did you not know exactly what you wanted to do, or you had a different vision of what your career would be?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I started getting into the media management, I found out that I really did have that sort of creative mindset to be able to create these images for her social media posts. And I figured that was something that I'd want to do, even if it was as, beside my performing, to have that sort of as a side job just beside my performing. And so I started really getting into that. And I actually, after I had my internship, I was able to do that for a couple clients outside of her internship. So I was really lucky enough to have that opportunity.
What strikes me, Nia, and I have two questions. What strikes me is that the cool thing that it seems like with this whole industry internship program is that, especially when you mentioned the social media posts and things like that, there are older members of the business community that would really benefit from having help from a younger person. And it's sort of symbiotic in that way, so that everybody benefits. And I was wondering, is that sense of fulfillment an added boost to the program for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually really glad you said that. A lot of the people that were reaching out to me after the internship were people that were, they've been in the business for a long time, and they wanted to find a way to reach more clients. And they were sort of grateful that they were having people that were my age that were offering to do that for them, to be able to create these social media posts so that they can have this outreach to other people that might want to join their business. And that was also an eye opener for me, just having that connection with them.
I love that. I love that. Now, the second point that I was going to ask you is take us back. And as we started the conversation, we were talking about sort of the whole removal of the arts from the schools. Did you experience any of that when you were young?
Absolutely. Especially when I moved from Illinois to Tennessee, I sort of noticed just a really big difference between the funds that they gave to us in Illinois as a music department versus the ones that they had in Tennessee. So a lot of the funds that we got as a school went towards, the sports programs, towards the football team to provide them new uniforms. While on the other hand, we would need in the arts department, we needed new bleachers, new risers, and maybe renovations for our music department and everything. So it was just sort of night and day when I moved to Tennessee, just seeing how we didn't exactly have the funds to make our music department as great as it could be. We had a lot of talent within, I can definitely say a lot of talent within our program in Tennessee. And it's always difficult seeing that talent, not necessarily, I'm not going to say go to waste, but not
be supported.
Exactly. And it was definitely difficult seeing that, not having those funds.
And this is the last question. I don't want to hog up the whole conversation, but because of that, what did you do to stay motivated?
I just remembered to focus on what I had a passion for, just be able to focus on my music. Even though I didn't have the funds, even though the funds weren't provided so that I could, have everything that I needed to do, I knew what I had within me. And I just made sure to make that my focus when I was trying to, audition for different schools and try to focus on what I needed to, and that was my music.
Did you come to Tennessee before you went to college, or was college the thing that you came for?
I came before. I came in my last 2 years of high school. My mother's job transferred her from Illinois to Tennessee and then again to Texas.
I got a question for you, Sid. Do you notice that students of color or more resistant to the industry and they want to perform, or they see the opportunities either way? Actually, of any color, do you notice one group of people trending one way versus the other?
We have a very interesting setup here at MTSU. And a lot of students don't understand, a lot of parents don't understand, a lot of faculty don't understand how our music program is set up. It's divided between two different colleges within the university. Wow. I teach in the School of Music, and the School of Music basically focuses on preparing musicians that are going to pursue careers in classical or straight ahead jazz. That's what we focus on. But there's another program in another college, in the College of Mass, what's it called now? Entertainment and, help me out, Nia. What's the other college name? They changed it. Entertainment and Media. That's what it's called. Used to be called just the College of Mass Communication. It caters more to people who are pursuing careers in commercial music. So they have a songwriting concentration, that is very popular over there.
Is that separate from the there's the School of Music,
Sure.
And there, there's the School of Music Industry, correct?
Well, the School of Music is in the College of Liberal Arts.
Okay.
There is what is called the recording industry that's in the other college.
Yeah.
And it's called the College of Media and Entertainment.
Okay.
And they have 3 basic tracks over there. And again, it's really popular with people who are into commercial music styles, songwriting, audio production, and music business. People who want to be, maybe working A&R at a record label or working publishing, that kind of thing. They don't require they don't require you to play in ensembles, take private lessons like we do over here. But again, we're focused more on classical and jazz. The really cool thing though about these 2 programs is we get a lot of students that want to kind of do both. They want to have their toe in both sides. They want to be literate musicians who can read and perform jazz, classical, and any style of music. But they also want to perform or be a part of commercial music industry program. So you can major in the School of Music in a music program over here, where we will train you to be an actual professional musician in terms of knowing how to read the music, play in various ensembles, and you can minor over there so that you get all of the music business stuff, if you want, as part of your training. And it prepares you to be a very versatile musician. The reverse is also possible. We get people who want to major over there. They audio production, producing records, pop records is their main thing, but they also want to play in the jazz band. They want that experience, so they can minor over here in the School of Music as well. And the one thing I'll end with is, I remember, guys, when I was in Take 6, and you guys can attest to this, the really best sound engineers that we worked with were also trained musicians. And those are the cats, man, that I think really set themselves up to be very successful in the industry. The people who realize that as students, I need both of those 2 things, man, in my tool belt.
Yeah. Matter of fact, it was you said that actually got me into that whole thing of filling your bag of tricks, so to speak, which helps with your versatility, which increases the odds of your success in the music business. So, and one last question, this is pertaining strictly to the Take 6 scholarship. Does it matter if you're a major in the one college over there at MTSU or the other in order to receive the scholarship? And the reason why I'm asking is because I'm checking out the chat room. People are really liking what you're saying about MTSU and the program, how it's set up over there. And if someone wanted to receive the Take 6 scholarship, do they need to focus one way or the other?
Technically, they have to be a major in the School of Music. That's where I teach.
Right.
And when we set up the scholarship, we set it up so that originally you had to be a vocal jazz performance major. And we had so few students that really wanted to just focus on that we opened it up. So for instance, Nia, she's not a vocal jazz performance major. She is a music industry major with jazz vocal emphasis added on. So we opened it up to allow students to do that as well and be able to receive the scholarship. Now, I started out answering your question with the word technically.
Yes.
Well, because I basically am in charge of the scholarship, I can make exceptions to rules.
You can issue the exceptions.
Like that. And it's because it's in your name, you can come to me and say, look, Sid, we got this student that is really talented. They're not really in the School of Music. Now they do have to be at MTSU. Come on, guys.
Right. Yeah.
I know what y'all are thinking.
I'm kind of thinking I might want to go to MTSU myself.
But we can
want everybody to hear, listen closely to what Dr. Den is saying. So you guys that seem interested in what we're talking about, this is the path that you need to take.
We can make exceptions to rule. The one thing though that we don't make any exceptions to is they have to be good enough to be in the MTSU singers.
Gotcha.
You know, that's an audition only ensemble. And if they pass the audition and they can be in the ensemble, then we'll consider an exception. The student that I think you guys met before by the name of Grant Argent, I think he did a video, who is the current holder of the Take Six Vocal Jazz Scholarship. He's the first that is not technically a vocal jazz emphasis.
He's the first exception.
He's an amazing jazz guitarist, but he is a School of Music major. He's a music major, and he's in MTSU Singers, has been in MTSU Singers for the last several semesters. And so because of his dedication, man, he's a section leader in the ensemble. I said, man, how can I not, give this guy the scholarship?
So, couple things, Doc. I'm going to have to ask you this. Are you the one who lets these people into the singers? Is this?
Yes, as the director of the MTSU Singers, I'm the one that is
7 job
that decides who gets in the ensemble. Now, folks, this is not a church choir, fellas. You can't just walk up in here. You got to audition for the ensemble. But let me tell you, I wish she could have joined us too. But my assistant director, Ashley Kimbrough, she's a graduate of Steve Zagree's program up in Western Michigan. She did her master's in jazz performance, vocal jazz performance. And in her last semester there, he basically turned the Gold Company over to her. And she ran the Gold Company her last semester there. Wow. And so when I knew I was going to start this program, he got wind of it. He actually called down and said, look, I got a student that's graduating. She's moving to Tennessee because she's engaged to a guy that lives in Murfreesboro. He's finishing up his master's degree at MTSU. If you can use her at all, you need to hire this girl. She is that good. And she Ashley was really great in helping me set up the structure. She helped me decide, okay, what kinds of things do we need to focus on in auditions even? Because she had been through that program with Steve. She brought a wealth of knowledge of how to run a collegiate vocal jazz ensemble.
Awesome.
So I have to give her a bunch of kudos for helping me pull it together and the program that we have now.
Anyone who loves vocal jazz knows that when you have the endorsement of Steve Zagree and the Gold Company, man, it's Cedric Dent, Dr. Dent of Take Six.
Are you kidding?
That's a double whammy right there.
Yeah. And I tell everybody, Ashley Kimbrough is my right hand. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen any of the little clips of us performing in schools.
Yeah,
she's the female, man, that is in there. I had to really tighten up my scatting game just to hang with her. I mean, she came in, man, blowing me out of the room, just scatting for, as if it was like something she drank for breakfast. I was like, oh Lord. So when I first started writing arrangements for her and Jim, when we would go perform, I would write all the scat solos for her. Just sing my part, dude. Bop, bop, dude. Eventually she was like, you gonna do a solo? You guys know how I am about singing solos, man. I was like, oh, God, don't make me do this. But you know, that goes to something else, guys. When you teach, you are a lifelong learner, man. You don't stop learning. I mean, and you know, so the students push you, your colleagues push you, and so I have become a stronger musician as a result of directing the MTSU singers and working with colleagues like Ashley Kimbrough and Jim Ferguson.
Well, what goes?
Let's bring Nina into the conversation as well, though, because Nina, I know you teach and have taught before as well. From your perspective, could you speak to almost the same thing that Sid has been speaking to, especially?
I'm drinking this up, man. I'm drinking it up like a person because you know, it's interesting. You get these young people and they are hungry and trying to find their way. So for me, I think an initial conversation is, what do you consider success? That's a very important question. And I ask my students to just consider, in 10 years, 5 years, your success, what does your life look like? I mean, really look like. And sometimes it starts off kind of surface, you know, riding in a nice car, people taking pictures of you, paparazzi, whatever. But the reality is the life in front of the camera is short-lived. We know this, right? We know there's a lot more longevity behind the camera than there is in front of the camera. And if you're going to be in front of the camera, you have to continually learn and continually evolve.
Because
if you don't love it,
relevant. That's a good point.
Yes, because the world changes. What stays the same? Nothing.
Right.
So so look to mentors, people out there in the world who have continued to evolve and have been blessed. We've all been blessed with long careers, but there are reasons for that. And it's not always your new hit single and then your next new hit record. Every career has peaks and valleys. So the more you do and the more you know how to do, the more you can do. The more income streams, like with Jim Ferguson example, is a perfect example. And anything that keeps your heart engaged, and that also puts something beautiful in the world. I think we sort of downplay beauty. Beauty is super important, especially now. People are hungry for beauty. We're starving for these beautiful moments, and we're realizing how important it is. What we do is essential, like air, like water. And so building up those ideas that, no, we're not doing this because it's the only thing we know how to do. We're doing this because this is a calling. I mean, a real calling. Which means it's not always gonna be easy, and it's not always gonna be rosy. But you're in there for the long haul because this is what you came here to do.
Right.
You can't not do it.
Here's a question for everybody. How has the pandemic and the move toward sort of these Zoom classes and everything streaming, how has that impacted this conversation that we're having right now?
Well, for me, it has shown me that, just like we were saying earlier, most people want to be the one holding the microphone. They want to be the one on the stage with the applause and these kinds of things. But there's so many other places in this industry called music and entertainment that you can find yourself in, because the reality is everybody needs support. Stand on the stage at Madison Square Garden and just be an artist, and let's see how much you need other people. Who's gonna make the microphone? Who's gonna know how to plug the microphone in?
Yeah.
Who's gonna understand the right channels to go through? I mean, it's like we all need support. And so during this pandemic, one of the things that I did immediately was go from the front of the line to the back of the line. I started to figure out ways that I could support other people that needed an avenue to continue doing their thing. So that's when I picked up my camera and I was like, listen, if you're going to, you're going to do it, we can still do your album release. It's got to be virtual, but it's got to be right. So let me produce it for you. Let me, then it starts to open up all these other layers. And I realized that you don't have to be that guy in the front in the spotlight or whatever. You can be the support dude that nobody even sees their name. Coming to America too the other day, I was seeing pictures all over the internet with, Alvin Chia's name at the end. It was like, listen, he wasn't on stage, but take away the music, take away the person who wrote the score, take away all of that element, and what do you have? So it's all needed. So for me, this pandemic has showed me to go, like Dr. Den says, go into your bag of tricks and figure out ways that you can multiply yourself or that you can recreate yourself. And sometimes that doesn't mean, all right, well, let me drop something every week. It might mean, let me support somebody else who wants to drop something every week and be that dude who films them or be the dude who writes the script for them or puts the graphics together. And all of these things help you to do more in times of famine, for sure.
What about you, Nia, from your perspective? How has the sort of the virtual interaction, has that changed your motivation at all? Has it made it stronger? Has it lessened it a little bit? Or tell us how it's impacted you.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely say it was extremely hard at first. It was difficult just being able to, I was seeing, Dr. Dent and Professor Kimbrough and all of my other classmates every single day, just being able to perform with them, being able to sing with them, being able to be in the same environment, and then just having all of that, just sort of drop at the same time was extremely difficult. It's always hard to have everything taken away at once, and you're sort of just in panic mode trying to figure out how everything is. So it was definitely difficult at first. But as I sort of started to think about the circumstances and started trying to figure things out, especially after I graduated, I realized that even though I wasn't able to perform anymore, live, that doesn't mean that my voice was completely silenced. I'm still able to, make videos. I'm still able to practice on my own. I'm still able to practice my craft as much as possible. And so it was difficult, but I've been able to sort of weigh out the good from the bad. And it's helped me a lot, especially just because everything, crashed and burned, but it started lighting up and it's gotten a lot easier for me.
In different ways, yeah. I love that.
It sounds like everyone has been saying that, during this time and even before this time, we've all continued to learn.
Yes.
We've all continued to hone our craft. And this has certainly been a time this past year to sit back and say, who am I? What is it I'm really passionate about? How do I continue being passionate about the things that I have been passionate about and the other passion projects that I've had that I haven't had time to do? I think, especially for myself, and certainly Christian, who mentioned it earlier, I mean, you find things about you, you're like, whoa, I've always wanted to do this. And so you're finding ways to do that. And even if you haven't completely gone into that quite yet, the learning process is keeping you busy and keeping you sharp and allowing you to even be better at the things that you're really good at anyway. It's like you're sharpening your skills. Like Sid was saying, he had to get his scat game up because his students are pressured him. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing in all the things we've always done, but we've always kind of almost been on autopilot in this 30 plus year career. We know how to do this. It runs like clockwork, and all of a sudden it stops and you're like, whoa, who am I now? What's happening? And so in a way, I mean, those first couple of months were tough, and we've already talked about that amongst the six of us. But these last few months, at least for me, have been revelations. some of the things that I'm learning and wanting to do and staying up all night researching and stuff like that. It's amazing, the brain power at my advanced age that I'm finding and using.
So I have a question for Sid. From your angle, what have you observed about what the pandemic has done with your students? Nia spoke with what she had to deal with. What have you seen as one who directs traffic, who has to deal with them one-on-one? How has it affected them?
I have really, that's a great question, Joey. I have really been blown away by the creativity of students, how they have been able to pivot, and make it happen anyway. I have to give a shout out to my colleagues though that teach as well. I visited the guy for the first time just a few years ago. MTSU hired a guy specifically to teach music industry courses and to develop the program even more, because it is the fastest growing program in the School of Music. When I first started teaching here, music education was by far the most popular program in the School of Music. Now it's music industry, because parents and students are realizing how much versatility their kids have when they graduate with that degree. So I'm saying this to say, I visited the guy who we hired. I got to give him a shout out, Dr. David Cizak, who also teaches oboe here as well. He does both, music industry and oboe. An amazing musician. I visited his music industry class that he teaches all online. Man, he covered so much stuff in 1 hour. He had these kids doing mock interviews for jobs, like say at a record label. He has them turning in projects where they've developed websites for themselves and other artists. They are doing podcasts on various stuff. I mean, they really are owning this thing, man, and the creativity, that they show in developing all of these ideas while we're in the midst of a pandemic, man. It has not slowed them down at all. If anything, man, it has pushed them to be even more creative. And that's what I've seen. And it proved to me something that I had been hearing for years. And that is, in other industries outside of music, actually recruit students who major in music for graduate programs and for their various businesses, because they like the way people who are in the arts think creatively in problem solving.
Yes.
So we got a lot of students, man, that got music degrees here, and then they go to med school because of med programs were like, no, this is the one we want.
Wow.
I got a student that finished his internship, and then he went to work for the state legislature downtown Nashville, and is now an entertainment lawyer.
Wow.
I mean, I'm thinking about you guys familiar with Robert F. Smith, the investor who graduated from Morehouse?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Extremely wealthy.
Yes.
He paid off all the loans
Yes.
for the 2019 graduates. And
Yeah.
Yes.
he also is the second largest donor to the African American Museum at the Smithsonian. I got so inspired by this guy. I started kind of following him, and I wrote down a quote that he said once that sort of I would say encapsulates why the arts are so important. He says this: the best employees are those who are interested not just in finance or computers, but in music, theater, and the arts as well. I look for a complete package when I hire someone. When someone is a complete package, they are more engaged, more excited, more passionate about what they are doing. This is a guy who works in the investment field, and he's talking about hiring people with degrees in the arts because of the creative aspect that they bring to whatever they do.
Whatever they do. And the other thing is that there are things you learn in a collaborative environment that you can't learn any other way.
That's right.
It's just impossible. You know, mathematics is very cut and dry. You know, 2 and 2 is 4 all day long.
Yeah.
But we are problem solvers.
That's right.
You're in the middle of a tune, something ain't quite right. You got to pivot on a dime and still make it sound musical.
That's right.
You know, and not let it fly across your face for the audience to know that something went cuckoo. Yeah. And I have to do it in heels. Okay. So I'm just saying. But
yes, ma'am.
But these are things that when we remove them from the schools, we lose a way of learning, a very special way of learning. Like when you're in chorus, it's not you, the soloist, it's the blending of the voices. It's making many one. Where else do you get that in school? Physics doesn't require that of you.
That's right.
When you're in theater and you're learning your lines and you realize if you don't show up for rehearsal, everybody suffers.
Yeah.
You are super important because we need you. Even if you only have one line, we need you for that moment. So, I mean, these are lessons that go underneath the radar, not to mention self-esteem, concentration, dedication, discipline. Yeah. Nobody starts off sounding fantastic.
That's right.
You know, even learning how to edit. Maybe you know how to do one thing very well. Sometimes that can be standing right in your way of getting better because you lean on that again and again and again, and you never go beyond it to find out what else is in that voice. So it's really a road of self-discovery. And if you're not ready to meet yourself, then you better go do something else. Because you're gonna meet you.
That's right.
I love that. So it sounds like what you're saying is critical thinking has been impacted by the greater society's lack of vision in what music and the arts is bringing to the table.
Absolutely.
But here's the great thing about what you just said, though, Dave, because Sid just said the thing that he's been seeing is the creative ways that his students have been able to combat all of that.
Exactly. Because of their focus on the arts is what I guess that's what we're all saying. That emphasis is the seed for the critical thinking. So it's a really good thing. And nowadays, the cool thing about it is the good thing about the whole tech industry is that they recognize that critical thinking is absolutely necessary. So then, like said, Dr. Dent was saying, Nina's been saying that everyone starts to look at that entire package, so to speak, because they have a more complete way of relating to their environment than just one way. So I love that.
Well, then this question for Nia. Nia, do you find that they give you a lot of space to make your contribution? Do you find that they kind of push back because they don't see how it can be done, whereas you're more open-minded and you can see what this solution, what do you find when you're making your contribution in the work environment that you're in?
So in my current work environment, they allow me to somewhat be open-minded just because I work within, are you talking about like in my current industry that I'm working in right now? Are you talking about my like media management?
Yes, where they brought you in as a fresh mind, where new thinking has to be done now, new ways of getting things done. Do you find that the people you're working with are more rigid Like, okay, we can't see how that can be done? Or do they give you plenty of space? Like, okay, you know what? We have no idea, but we're gonna let you do your thing because we can't figure it out. Which one do you see more?
So I definitely see a lot of open-mindedness within, I see a lot of trust that they give me whenever I do my media management. They say, here's a theme that I want. This is sort of the idea that I have, but I'm going to give you the creative ability. I'm going to give you the freedom, the liberty to do what you want within your media management. And I'm just going to put my trust in you. That gives me enough room to sort of back up and look at the bigger picture, but also focusing on what I want to do creatively to represent your image to the best of my ability.
And the reason why I ask that is because what Dr. Dent has been saying is there's a resilience and a new creativity that younger generation does not even pause before they start trying to figure things out. So it's almost like that is an answer. I wonder how resistant those of us who have been in this for a long period of time are to new ways of thinking about things, because it sounds like the generation that we kind of were concerned about, they actually have the tools to be able to work through all this stuff. It's whether we give them the latitude to do what they creatively know how to do.
I think, Joey, that we may think we need to give them the latitude, but the way it works these days, the gatekeepers have changed. Anybody can get to YouTube. Anybody can start their own company. Anybody can have a concept and go viral. What I keep hearing, which I think is very interesting, Nina both said, pivot, pivot, pivot. That's a whole new muscle that all of us who want to continue to be survivors in this industry are going to have. There is, I think, those who continue to be in this industry will be a lot stronger having come through this experience than if we would have just continued to coast along. There's new muscles that we're being forced to use that we never thought about before. So.
That's an excellent point, Ben. Let me jump in and say, a lot of people were joking me because I joined the Jason Max Ferdinand Singers, something I probably never would have done if it weren't for this pandemic.
I'm amazed.
I was, yeah, Mark was one of those joking me. This I gotta hear. But here's the thing.
But I know if you were in something, it's going to be absolutely fantastic and beyond imagination. So you enjoyed that. That blew my mind.
Well, you know, the backdrop for that is, you know, Jason has always, man, come to me for arrangements for the Aeolians. And so when he said he was handpicking a select group to put together for a particular performance, he asked me, did I have something I could write for them? And so I did an arrangement of He's Got the Whole World in His Hand. And then he said, well, I'm putting together this ensemble. You think you might be interested in singing in it? Now, normally I would have said, no, man, I don't have time, man. I'm teaching, I'm doing this and that, but I didn't really have any excuses. I was sitting at home, man.
As he knew you were.
as he knew we all were. And I was like, okay, he's doing my arrangement. How can I say no?
We're right outside.
but I had Bev at home saying, what the heck? What else you got to do?
I love it.
Y'all are boys. You got the time. You haven't sung in an ensemble like this. Since high school?
Yeah.
And I got to tell you guys, I couldn't make the recording recently because I tested positive for COVID, so I couldn't do the performance. But the ensemble, man, is already getting all kinds of invitations for performances down the road. He wants to have a professional chorus that is separate from what he does at Oakwood with the Aeolians, man. And he handpicked about 25 to 28 singers. Wow. Some of them are former Aeolians. Some of them are just professional classical singers. And the first time they got together, they sounded like they had been singing for 20 years, man. I mean, they showed up and showed out. I was able to zoom in on their last rehearsal before they recorded their performance, man. Yeah. And I thought, man, this is another way, man, that I can sharpen my musical toolkit, man, by singing with an ensemble that's doing primarily classical choral stuff, you know. And so in the future, man, I plan to rejoin them because it's something that I would not have thought about doing had I not been shut down for a while and started thinking, what else can I do? It's kind of like I still remember you, Benny, saying years ago, the traffic is so bad in LA. I know a guy that learned and became a professional harmonica player, sitting in his car playing his harmonica while sitting in traffic.
1 week a year, you're stuck in traffic in LA. 1 full week every year, you're in traffic.
And so this guy learns a whole skill. I mean, and it just being shut down in this pandemic reminded me of that. It's like, you know what? I need to take advantage of this time and do something meaningful. Wow. That's great. Better myself.
Yeah. You know, it's funny that you say that, man, because I believe that this pandemic was us getting handed shovels. And stay with me. I'm going somewhere. Watch this. If you hand a man a shovel, you can do in a situation like this. You can do one or two things. You can either dig a grave, or you can dig a well. If rain is not going to come from the sky, then you need to switch your buckets out. Because that's the truth is, as artists and entertainers, we've been living in a rainy season for quite some time. All we had to do was, if we wanted some water, just take your bucket outside, fill up, and you got what you need. But this pandemic has handed us all shovels. And you got a choice. Are you going to dig your grave and be like, well, ain't nobody working else and whatever? Or are you going to dig a well? And I believe that these are times where now you're seeing what people are really made of. Mm-hmm. You're seeing people that have made a resolve in their heart that say, you know what? I'm not digging a grave. I'm digging just like you digging, but we might be digging two totally different things.
Amen.
What we're doing is we're digging wells. There's certain arteries that are essential, you know, and if you block a path, they will create another path. That's right. To get what's necessary to what's needed, to where it needs to go. And these blockages, I think, are proving for us that we have what it takes to dig wells and create new paths to still get what's necessary to where it needs to go.
Good.
Yeah,
excellent.
That's excellent. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Man, can we do a part 2 at some point, y'all?
Absolutely.
Part 2.
Yeah, we could talk for another hour. This is amazing, and the people in the chat room are loving it as well. This has been a blessing for real. It's so good to see you, Dr. Dent.
Fellas.
Good to see you, man.
Before we leave, I said, tell us one more time how someone who's interested can get to the Take Six Scholarship and receive that honor to work with you personally.
You can just go to the MTSU website, mtsu.edu, and then click on the School of Music, man. And we have all the kinds of information that you would need in terms of all of the scholarships that are available, how to apply, how to audition. You can access all of the professors. I regularly field questions from potential students and their parents, man, who just went to the MTSU website, saw my name, under music industry and just reached out and said, hey, this is what I really want to do. How do I get there? So we're very accessible.
Love it.
We can make it happen.
Love it.
Thank you, man.
All
So
right.
everybody who's listening and watching here on YouTube, thank you for coming out and checking out the Spread Love podcast. What we would love for you to do is to like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. You've been checking out the Spread Love podcast. We've had Dr. Dent on. Thank you. We've had Nina Freelon. We've had Mia. Man, so this is
so proud of you.
Yay, Nia.
Thank
thank
you.
you, everybody.
Make us proud. Continue to do so.
All right.
That's it. Love you guys.
Bye-bye.
Love you. Peace
See you
out.
next time.
Enjoyed it, guys.
Take care.
I love
Stay
you.
safe.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Right.